to be like, okay, well, this is bad.
Yeah, I know. And also, I played it a lot, so I guess it's probably hard for you to get a measure on some of the gameplay stuff we're going to be talking about. But it's I mean, I've already said this before, but I'm going to be playing all of Chain of Memories because the systems in that game are interesting. A lot of people hate it. I'm okay with it. But anyway, so this is the promised discussion episode of Kingdom Hearts, which I hope to do with all of our Let's Plays going forward from here, because, like, you guys may be wondering, like, how I pick these things, and I initially started out just kind of doing them, like, I did the Mario Kart 1, and then I did Persona, and I'm kind of changing my tune on how I did all of this. I think from now on, for the most part anyway, I'm going to do tandem Let's Plays like this with 2 people from here on out. And the reason I want to do that is because if I'm going to do these kinds of Let's Plays, I want to be able to afterwards make videos about the games, discuss them, and actually talk about them from some kind of artistic standpoint. I don't mean like from a pretentious artistic standpoint. Let me put that in a way. I don't want to just play it and do commentary. I want to be able to talk about it in some way, whether it's good or bad or whatever else. So I don't want to. I won't be doing a whole lot of blind playthroughs. I don't think. I guess is the point, because I want to be able to talk about things like this afterwards. I mean, obviously, well, I think I'm starting to call these half-blind Let's Plays because I'm doing them with people. Yeah,
because one of them's blind, one of them's not.
Which I figure is the best way to do it, because that way you have you have someone who's experienced about it enough to discuss it, and you have one
somebody else. It's like, ooh, look at that!
Woo!
Wow!
It's all shiny and new for them, you know. Which is I have had a great experience with you, and also with another one of my friends who hadn't played any of the Kingdom Hearts games before. I've been watching, basically, I've been watching my own Let's Play with her. Yeah. So basically, I don't want to do Let's Plays unless like it's a game that I know I'm going to have something to say about it, because otherwise, just like I can. Plenty of people are just playing games online.
Yeah,
I want to be able to discuss them from some level. And I hope that doesn't sound pretentious, because I don't think that...
I don't think it does.
I don't think that... Because I say this because I have a friend at a college who I was trying to show some kind of, like, film thing to recently, and I think that he said, you know, so he likes film a lot. He makes movies, right. And I said, I don't think that he said to me, I don't think that I look as deep into this stuff as you do. And I responded and said, it's not so much that I think, you know, as you're watching a movie, you need to be able to go, okay, this symbolizes this, and this... I think that, like, English class in high school, I don't know how much it is in other countries, but in the States, it's very much trained around, so what is the symbolism?
Yeah, what does that mean?
And I think that people, because you're used to identifying the symbolism, you wind up getting hung up on, like, you know, okay, so the symbol itself has some kind of inherent meaning. Like, that's not the... Like, symbolism is meant to try and silently communicate something to you. Like, you know, people will analyze good pieces of film or literature or games or whatever else, and they'll get into, like, really deep into why it's good, and people are like, you know, why are you nitpicking this so much?
Right.
It's because, like, when something is good, you're not gonna... Like, your brain will notice it, but you won't consciously see it. Like, for instance, one of the thing that I was showing to my friend was a review of Star Wars. Once I say this quote, people will know which one it is. But he's talking about... He was reviewing Phantom Menace. And he was talking about the original Star Wars and the shot where the Rebel ship comes in and then the Empire ship comes in, right? The Rebel ship is really small.
Yeah.
And then the huge Imperial ship looms overhead. And he's saying, you know, like... He says, you know, the low angle on the huge ship, you know, symbolizes, you know, dominance. He's not saying it's a symbol. He's saying... He's talking about visual...
It represents...
He's saying visual storytelling. Yeah. You know, somebody watching the movie isn't going... Oh, this symbolizes dominance. But watching the movie, you know, these are the big, strong people. Those are the weak ones.
I mean, it's just unspoken. Like, it's good when they can do that.
It's visual storytelling. That's what most, like, good symbolism is. It's not something you sit there and think about, you know, this is a symbol of this. You'll never notice it's a symbol because symbols are things that we're all used to that communicate something. Like a stop sign is a symbol.
Yeah.
You see that and you know what it means, you know, but you don't think about, you know, the symbolism of a stop sign, you know, and I think that's how... But in order to make something good, I think that you have to really look into that kind of stuff. So it's not this kind of thing where you need to be, like, you know, I think when I talk about criticizing things, people think that I'm sitting here, like, you know, playing a game, and I think that everybody should be, like, constantly nitpicking everything, looking for the deeper meaning behind everything. I don't think that, but I think that, like, for instance, I hear a lot of people talking about Kingdom Hearts saying, you know, the series has lost a lot of its charm since the first couple games. And that's a useless statement to me. Like, I don't think it's untrue, but I can't go to develop... And, like, not that I'm, you know, going to go to Japan and tell them how to make Kingdom Hearts or anything, but, like, at the same time, it's like, you know, okay, if I tell the maker of the game, you know, it's lost its charm, what does that mean to them?
Yeah, exactly.
There's some kind of key root problem there that I think can probably be identified, and I don't think that everybody has to be able to do that, but that's why...
By saying that, you're not identifying the problem, you're just basically saying, well, oh, it doesn't... I don't like it as much as the other ones. Because, I mean, what are they supposed to do about it? Like, oh, we need to get the charm back. Okay, let's go back. Let's add some more worse AI. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. Make Donald heal them 50% less. So that's why I want to do stuff like this. It's not because I think that there's some kind of requirement to look at all games or anything else at this level, but because I feel like if I'm going to bother being on the internet talking about this stuff, I do want to try and look at what's good and bad about things at some level. So anyway, we're not, and this is, to be clear, this isn't like a review of the game that we're about to do here. We're just going to talk about certain elements of it, and some stuff that I couldn't really get into as we were playing through it before. I kind of have an itinerary here, like a list of things we're going to go through, but it's not like, this isn't like really that structured. I have the list just so that I remember what we're talking about. So anyway, I think first, like, I should just say, so Joey, we talked briefly, you know, and you said you obviously liked the game previously, but we're going to go through a bunch of different things throughout it, but just like, I think I should just say, again, I don't know how much you'll have to say to this, but do you have any, like, you know, brief, you know, okay, why you enjoyed it, what you liked about it, or anything else before we get into this, really?
Obviously, I didn't get to play a whole lot of it. I just got to watch it, so...
Which, to be clear, I don't want to cut you off, sorry. I just want to say this, because people have commented on that before. If we get to Kingdom Hearts, Joey will be playing a lot of that one. I just want to throw that out there, but just... Anyway, I'm sorry.
Well, it wasn't a complaint, because I really was enjoying just watching it.
But people have commented on it before,
yeah.
so I'm saying. But anyway, go ahead.
I liked it because, aside from the gameplay elements, and of course, like, well, you're gonna like the Disney parts of it if you grew up with Disney. And of course, I didn't grow up with it as much as you did, because
there were a lot of movies you hadn't seen.
I hadn't seen, but from what I had seen, and like I've been to Disney World, I think 9 or 10 times at this point.
Nice.
Like, I love Disney, and I love the aesthetic. I love just the the charm of Disney.
Yeah.
But being able to see that in a game that wasn't specifically a Disney game, you know, not based around one movie or anything, it gave me a really nostalgic feel. Like, revisiting all these new areas that I'd seen from my childhood. That's one reason I was really enjoying it. But aside from that, like, the actual video game parts, the actual story, like, there's, of course, like, Disney elements, but then it's its own story. And I was really enjoying all that, learning about the Heartless, learning about Ansem, seeing Sora grow as a character, seeing, you know, the conflicts between him and Riku, like they were trying to save Kairi different ways and all of that, and it was a really good parallel, and I enjoyed that.
So you talking about, like, you know, does a good job of putting you in all these settings. I was thinking about, like, you know, this game came out in, I think, 2002 or 2003 or so.
Yeah.
And I just can't help but thinking, this game did a better job of putting you into Disney settings than Disney Interactive had for like 10. Like, they've been trying to do that for 10 years, and this game did a better job of that than like anybody else. And obviously, like, there's some playing it today. There's a lot of problems with the level design.
The platforming is just god awful.
Oh, it's terrible. Yeah. Which I think we said this at some point during the playthrough, but like, you know, Nomura wanted to make a game like Mario 64 was the idea, which
like that wasn't it.
Nope, wasn't that at all. But anyway. So I have characters listed first, and since you talked about Sora's, you know, character, I think we should start there, since he is the main character after all. His general motivation throughout the game is friendship. Like, that stays static. He always cares about his friends, and that's what's driving him. But what that means to him and what that word encompasses does not remain static.
Because at the first, like, it's really just him. He's like, okay, I'll go with you, Donald and Goofy, but we're looking for Kairi. I'm searching for
and
my
Riku,
friends.
obviously.
And Riku, but you know, then they fight, and so it's a little bit less. But it's mostly just Kairi. But by the time he, you know, rescues Kairi, he realizes it's so much more than that. He's like, okay, well, you know, this was my original goal, but like, we have to stop this. You know, he goes on the whole spiel about how he's met all these new people and he's got all these new friends from all these different places. So, like, it's really, he's doing it not just for Kairi, but for all of them by the end of it.
Like, and this is also, obviously, like, so we didn't get to talk about the ending of the game much, because we went immediately into credits. But I love how at the very end of the game, like, 2/3 of his initial objective could be very easily accomplished. He has to hop 1 inch, and he goes back to Destiny Islands, and he's with Kairi.
Yeah.
That's that's more than half of what he wanted to do at the beginning of the game. And Riku might be dead, but he has, you know...
No, it's fine.
He chooses not to do that because he has other stuff to do now. Not just because Riku is still out there somewhere, but the king as well. He has, like, a greater responsibility beyond his own desires.
Yeah.
Speaking of Riku being out there somewhere, Riku is established very early on to be better than you.
Exactly.
Like I'm pretty sure that they make the race BS on purpose. They really want you to lose to him.
Not only that, like, from, like, when I actually was playing it, like, you can fight all those other people, but you see, like, Riku first. Like, you see a separate island, and he's on there, and he's like, okay, let's fight. And you can beat him, of course, but if you're first starting the game, you're not. You're gonna get your ass handed to you.
Yeah, and he's like, he's got more, like, obviously they're very well telegraphed, but he has more tricks to him. Like, he'll block your attacks.
Yeah.
If you knock him down, he jumps back up and hits you again. He's just more skilled, and he has more movement abilities than what you do.
Right.
He can jump farther, he can move
And
faster,
of course he's
and all this different
older.
stuff.
And
Yeah, he's older by 1 year. It's an
Older-
anime.
but
That's a big
yeah,
deal.
it's a big deal.
Yeah.
He's older by 1 year, and he looks tougher than you. Like,
He's got. Have you seen like the art of him or not?
Yeah,
Like
he's
the
muscled.
He's got like he's got rippling muscles.
exactly.
But it's like he's
Like, you're not beating him in a one-on-one fight.
it's like him and Sora are clearly friends, but their relationship is also like defined. Riku's the strong, cool, aloof one. Like everybody on the island knows that he's better.
Yeah.
And I love the conversation where they're sitting on the tree at the beginning of the game, and he's talking about leaving, and Riku is the protagonist in that scene. He's asserting, this is what I want to go do. This is what I want to go see. You're the one who made me think of this stuff, Kairi. We're gonna go out there. Riku, like Sora's the goofy sidekick in that scene. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about, man. He's the Jar Jar Binks of that scene.
Exactly.
But that whole thing flips obviously because Sora gets the legendary weapon, the Keyblade, and it just eats at Riku. I think because like Sora is now
Because he's finally better at something.
or at the very least just as capable. Because like that
Right.
scene where they first
Okay, yeah.
reunite, Riku kills some Heartless. He's like, "Don't worry, Sora, I'll take care of you." And Sora kills some more Heartless. Right? He's like, I can take care of myself now. He doesn't need the protection that Riku shows up offering. I mean, again, and that indicates that they're friends because Riku does care about him and Kairi, but like there's an immediate dichotomy shift there in the power relationship, and who has what ability. But there's one person who does need his protection, even though Sora doesn't, and that's Kairi. And he runs the other direction to her, I think, because there's at some level, he can the relationship's still the same there. I mean, she's comatose, obviously, but that's like I think that's this is one thing about the. Okay, so the the whole thing after they get to Hollow Bastion where Riku takes the Keyblade. It's like the Keyblade chose Riku first, and then it went to Sora later, and it's like in this, I don't think it needed to be fully explained. In the later games, they get into more detail about like how that whole thing worked, and I'm going to say right now that it's a bit about why it was Riku's first and then Sora's. Because it's okay. Also, I'll say this. So in the first game, there's like two Keyblades. There's like Sora has his Keyblade, and it's like it says the Keyblade, chose him, right? Yeah. And then at the end, there's like the weird Keyblade that Ansem Riku has that Sora uses on himself. That was like from the Princess's Hearts, but it's like and then Mickey has one, obviously.
Right.
But he says like I have the Keyblade of this world, so we assume it's like the Keyblade of the Dark Realm. So it's like there's not many Keyblades around in the first Kingdom Hearts. In the later games. Everybody gets Keyblade. You get a Keyblade. You get a Keyblade. Look under your seats. You get a Keyblade. Everybody gets a Keyblade. It's and they change the rules of how all this stuff works. But basically, my thing is, it confuses me from if I was gonna nitpick, the mechanics of it, especially before the other games existed. What do you mean it chose Riku and then chose Sora? If it chose Sora, then why could Riku get it back? And it doesn't make. But I think from a storytelling standpoint, it's just there to show how jealous Riku was of Sora. Like, Riku could have acted all like, are you too cool to hang out with me now that you have the Keyblade? But it's like, no, he really wanted that thing. Exactly. And he took it from him at some point. I think that was done at that point, so that Riku could be back on top, only for the ground to be knocked out from under him, which is what puts him in the position to be, kind of manipulated by Ansem at the very end, because he's kind of, he had just like one little second of everything was back status quo, and then it was definitively Sora beat him in a fight, and it was done, despite his cool, awesome body armor, which I really want an action figure of or something. But yes, anyway. Then the other main character, obviously, is Kairi, and I have in my notes here, just like Perry the Platypus, she doesn't do very much. She's not the most feminist character, exactly in this game.
She's just kind of there.
Well, I mean, when you say she's kind of
important,
but my problem is that she's knocked out for half the game. Like she's Sleeping Beauty for most of the game.
She's physically there, but she's not there.
I do think that when she is awake, she's a fairly driven character. Like she has, she's a tomboy, and she, like, in the opening sequence of the game, you know, Riku's not telling you to go pick up stuff. Kairi's bossing both of them around.
Exactly.
She's, when, after you do rescue her and go back to the cave, and Sora's like, no, I gotta go fight Ansem and fix, and you do all this stuff. She doesn't say, you know, can I come with you? She's like, let's go. She's like, she doesn't, you know, ask to go back. She assumes she's going back.
I mean, she's her own character. So that's a plus.
She's not, like, I think
like, for somebody that doesn't do very much, she has, like, she's not what you would call a useless character.
She's not useless because of how she's written. She's useless because of the screenwriter. You know, like, there's some characters who are just written, and it's like, this is a, you know, a poorly composed, you know, weak character. I think that if they hadn't decided to make her the object of the game, if they hadn't decided to make her into a plot device, because what little time she has, she does appear to be a strong character, so I don't think she's put in that position because she's a poorly written character. I think it's because the screenwriter said, this is what happens to you now.
Yeah.
You know? And I also, like, this is kind of this is not really a positive note almost, because it's like, you know, saying, okay, in an anime game this could have happened, so it's like, you know, not necessarily saying that this is great, but, like, she's not like this super starstruck, you know, senpai notice me, childhood friend character, you know, which, like, would have been very easy for this game to fall into, but it doesn't, you know, and it's, at least at some level, I like Kairi, even though she could have been a better character, obviously. I think that she isn't just there to fill in, you know, the roster, if you will.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of getting at earlier, is, like, even though she doesn't do very much for the game, you still like her. Like,
I think it's telling that the final character, I mean, obviously there's the post-credits scene, but, you know, the ending cinematic does not end on Sora, Donald, and Goofy. It ends on her, and most people probably don't mind too much.
Exactly.
Because, I mean, if nothing else, you want to see more of her, and I think that's a good sign. You know, you don't want her to get off the screen. You want her to be there. And then the other original character you were talking about a second ago, you know, the big reveal of Ansem. And I think that we're going to have to discuss some stuff about him a little bit more in a second when we get to a different part of the of this, when I want to talk about some of the themes. That are, some of them, again, I know that sounds pretentious. It's like, you know, oh, we're going to discuss themes? Boring. But it's like, I want to, you know, anybody can make a story that's in which things happen. It's like, okay, Dave was eating a mayonnaise sandwich, and then suddenly the sandwich exploded into a green alien, which abducted him into space, and then he had to fight the demons with his unicorn friend who had a M16.
Bam, story done.
Yeah, you know,
go home. 4 stars.
Every fan fiction ever is things that happen, but, you know, good stories are things that happen where you care about what happens. You know, so you don't need to, again, you don't need to be able to take a story and go like, you know, okay, this is what it's about all the time, but even if you don't realize that it is about something at some level, once you have, like, an understanding of what's happening and why you should care and what it's about, even if you aren't sitting there going, yes, the theme of this story. Again, I only discuss it from this perspective because the only way you get to good storytelling, as a writer at least, is to understand where all this stuff comes from and what happens to it. So I know I said that kind of earlier, but since I just said we're going to talk about themes, I'm not, again, this is not an English class, this is not an essay, but I feel like, you know, in order to discuss this game, what makes it good, you kind of have to get into stuff a little bit. But anyway, he's presented as a reliable source of information for most of the game, because you get, you know, the Ansem reports and stuff.
Yeah, and, like, you don't even think, like, he's the bad guy for the longest. You're just like, oh, here's this guy, and he was studying the Heartless, and I don't know what happened to him. I guess he's dead. Who knows what happened to him? But, you know, he knows a lot more than we do, and we're getting a bunch of information from the little tidbits of the Ansem report.
And most of the knowledge that we have about the Heartless and how they exist comes from his reports, and it's accurate. So, it, like, you know, pretty much everything in his reports is accurate, so he's established as a reliable narrator. And once you do get to the eviler journals, you know, all the stuff about kidnapping people for experiments, it exists along the scientific reports. Like, it's all, you know...
Of course, you don't get to see that till, like, towards the end of it.
Sure, but it's like, it's obvious that, you know, that character, you know, the scientist who is accurate and also this clearly evil guy kind of exist on the same plane.
Right.
This person, you know, again, who you understood to be a reliable narrator, you know, who gave you information and stuff. Anyway, what else have I got for notes here? He's got a cool voice.
Yeah. Woo!
Again, we'll talk about...
voice actor is always helpful, kids.
We'll talk about more stuff for Ansem in a minute. We'll loop back around to him. But, okay. So, on Maleficent, our original villain, using Maleficent for anything is cheating, right? Because she's so awesome. Okay, we need a villain. Maleficent. Done. Okay. Meeting adjourned. We're
Go
good.
home.
It's like, yeah, it's like...
Good.
she's a great cheat. She lets writers skip entirely past to write an interesting villain because we already know her. Like, I mean, you haven't seen Sleeping Beauty. Like, you identified her as Maleficent, I think, earlier on because you didn't know her name. But like, even then, you knew who she was.
Yeah.
You knew that she was evil.
I knew she was a dragon lady, so
Exactly, and that's
like the cool Alra from Final Fantasy XIV, but
yeah. And that's a problem that some of the later KH games struggle with. They don't have, I know my personal opinion. People will argue with me on this, but I'll get into this more as we proceed through the series. They struggle with having villains that you're actually motivated to go and kill. Like, most of the time, they're doing evil stuff, but there's not much emotional reason to go and deal with them beyond, like, okay, I'm a good guy. They're doing a bad thing. Yeah. Maleficent and the Heartless are great villains because the Heartless destroy your world. Okay, that's motivation. Awesome. I have a reason.
It's pretty good
to be
motivation, I'd say.
Maleficent is trying to destroy more worlds, and we know that she's a credible threat because we already know the Heartless destroyed yours. So, like, that's a minor one, but there's some motivation. Like, we know that she's associated with the Heartless. The Heartless destroyed your world. She's credible.
Yeah.
There's a threat there. There's, it's tangible. So there's some motivation there. And Maleficent is continually creating more problems. Like, it maintains tension by introducing more stuff. Okay, we turn Riku against Sora. Then we find out she has Kairi. They increasingly kind of compounds on that. And she also destroyed the world that the Final Fantasy cast came from. So if you care about them, there's motivation there. If you care about them anyway. Yeah. I know that was mostly just a gushing thing, but I just feel like Maleficent is a very effective villain in this game.
And then you kill her.
Yeah. Woo!
And she's gone.
Dead.
You can't
forever.
use her for the other games.
Forever.
Yeah, forever. Right?
She won't be back, right?
No, of course
not.
not.
I want to hear your guess right now. How fast will Maleficent appear again in these games? Do you think she's going to appear in Chain of Memories, or do you think you're going to have to wait until Kingdom Hearts 2? Or maybe she won't appear in Kingdom Hearts 2. Maybe you'll have to wait until the prequel game before she's dead.
I will guess towards either the middle or the end of Chain of Memories or the beginning of 2.
All right, we'll see. Place your bets now, people. If you're playing along at home, place your bets. Anyway, we're gonna have to discuss something I call Twin Snakes syndrome, which Twin Snakes is the remake of Metal Gear, not Solid Snake, the remake of Metal Gear Solid on the GameCube. And if you've ever watched comparison videos between the cutscenes, I might have to show you some of this later.
Okay.
It's kind of ridiculous because I think it has to do with how much extra stuff they could do with the cutscenes as the technology improved. The original MGS cutscenes are definitely flashy and cinematic and stuff, but they tend to be very fast. People talk quickly. There's not a lot of space between dialogue. On-screen, body movements and facial expressions are minimal because there's no, facial expression. Yeah. In Twin Snakes, everything is incredibly overwrought. There can be just long, nonsensical pauses between dialogue. Lines take longer to be. I'll have to. It's weird to look at. It's like it's the same.
Is it on purpose?
I think it's because when you hand people all this technology to do stuff with the cutscenes, that they couldn't before, suddenly it's like, I think a lot of those restrictions and pace that comes in the original one come from the technical limitations. Once you can do anything, you kind of start doing anything, even if it's subconsciously, I think. You don't... Once you don't have any limits, you're like, oh, stuff we couldn't do before. We can have, an extra hour of cutscene footage, practically. There's more space on the disc. Yeah. We can have more facial expression, more animated movement. We can make this, this action sequence more exciting, more ridiculous. There's, again, in Twin Snakes, there are some cutscenes of, straight up Matrix bullet time, dodging bullets and stuff. It's ridiculous. But I like Twin Snake syndrome as a term for... You can see this a lot in early 2000s games, kind of transition between, utilitarian functional cutscenes to, very overwrought, not very well produced cutscenes, I think, and it's present in the Kingdom Hearts games going forward, I feel. But anyway, the Final Fantasy stuffs, obviously, we'd only started playing Final Fantasy VII when we started on this.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to ask you about this, but considering maybe it's even better since you haven't played the games, did you think they were out of place? Because I've read especially some early reviews from people who weren't Final Fantasy fans.
I don't personally. I can see how people would say that, but I knew it going into it. I was like, there's Disney, there's Final Fantasy, there's original stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's got the whole 9 yards.
The whole 9 yards, yeah. And it's I don't know. I think they're integrated reasonably well into the story.
But I can see how people would say that though, because just the actual designs of the characters are a lot different. You look at a Kingdom Hearts character and you look at Sora, or you look at Donald and Goofy, and you're like, yeah, there's some big differences there.
I don't know. I feel like even Sora, Kairi, and Riku rest in a comfortable middle ground between Disney and Sephiroth.
Yeah.
But anyway, and then I think this is worth talking about very briefly. Just the huge variety of Disney characters. The animation director for this game talked about for 12 months of his life, all he did was watch Disney movies because he was getting, he wanted to make sure he had all of the little mannerisms and behavior and facial expressions of all the characters right. And I think that, again, part of the reason that the charm of this game is present is because you really feel as if these are the same characters from the films. Like, if you go and look at how, Bambi moves or how Jack Skellington moves in their original films, they're fairly accurate, to how those characters originally moved, exactly. And obviously, it helps that a lot of the voice actors are the original voice actors. They got a lot of the same voice actors back to play the characters again, at least in the English version, obviously. So even if your script is terrible, you've got that person who's played that character before, and they can bring that same feeling back, I think, which is helpful. But anyway, now we're going to actually talk about the plot a little bit. Like, we're going to skim through this, because obviously if you're watching this, you know the story, you've played the game and stuff. So Destiny Islands, is the very beginning, kind of is the setup of the game. A lot of people do not like Destiny Islands. They feel like it takes too long to get to stuff. Those people really hate the opening of Kingdom Hearts 2, because that one's even longer. I don't want to, again, we don't need to talk about this too much, because we already talked about, I think we already feel that the Riku stuff successfully establishes that character. I think we both agree that works well. I sent you a question beforehand telling you, originally, the whole Destiny Island segment was going to be much longer. I'm actually probably going to put up some concept art on screen of some original sketches of, Sora, I almost said Mickey, Donald, and Goofy, that doesn't make sense. Sora, Donald, and, Sora, Kairi, Riku, those three, are like original, older concept art of them. Like, I think they were drawn by Nomura, because it's kind of his manga-y style, but not like his normal art. It's very sketchy, but...
Right.
That sequence is originally going to be much longer. So I just kind of want to ask you this. What do you think in terms of, would it have been better to stay there longer and better establish those characters?
No, I do not. I think they established the characters enough, because it did kind of drag on for a ways. Mm-hmm. And especially if you didn't exactly know what you were doing, it could really drag on. But I think they established everybody's character good enough.
I think they even knew that, because they threw in the Disney cutscenes in the middle to kind of give you a semblance of what was going on, and throw those characters because they knew people picked up the box art. There's Donald and Goofy on this. What's going on?
Well, if you were to make it longer, I mean, what would you really add? Sure, you could build their character a little bit more, but it would just be more of them having conversations with each other. It wouldn't help too much.
I'm in the same boat. I just felt like that was worth talking about. But anyway, Traverse Town. I'm not going to talk about plot so much here. I love, and this is, again, as we move forward through here, I feel like the artistic direction in KH1 is some of the best of the series has. There are definitely really striking locations in the later games. Beautiful places that you go to later in the games that are well designed. But I think that on the whole, I like a lot of stuff in this game better than some of the other ones. And one thing that I love about Traverse Town is that even though it's an original location, in many ways they try to have a very Disney feel to it. There's not a lot of straight lines. Everything looks very cartoony and curved and stuff. The mailbox is the big top hat and the tongue sticking out, and it's not a tube, it's kind of tilting sideways. The street lamps are kind of crooked.
It's definitely not a realistic depiction of what a town would be. Mm-hmm. And I like that about it too. But well, I really don't have much to say about Traverse Town.
Sure, again, we don't need to go into a huge discussion there. I just felt like I like that setting, which is original, feels like it could be from a Disney movie.
Yeah, especially with the clock tower and all that. Mm-hmm. Just the way everything's painted and colorful. Mm-hmm. I can really see that. Yeah.
And the music's phenomenal, but that's completely.
I mean, most of the music.
Most of the music in this game is great. Yeah.
I mean,
they kind of make you run around town for a while and fight Heartless to keep some kind of semblance of stuff is happening. But it's mostly the Final Fantasy characters sit Sora down and say, okay, here's what this game is about. Now go play it.
Yeah, there you go. You got the Keyblade. You can open many locks, says the girl.
Many locks.
Yuffie. As Yuffie says seductively on the bed.
Yeah. But anyway, I'll have to put that meme on screen. And then the next couple, Wonderland, Deep Jungle, what's it called, the Olympus Coliseum, are all just kind of establishing the status quo. It's there's keyholes, I shoot them. There's villains, they're bad. They're kidnapping people, apparently. It's just kind of...
I wouldn't say the Coliseum, because we never did really figure out how they captured all the Heartless and had them in little arenas.
I want to know how that works so bad! Why isn't one of the spin-off games not been about that? That should have been one of the spin-off games, is Hercules Heartless wrangling.
He's just out there with a lasso.
Oh, that'd be so good. That'd be the best game. But anyway. And then after that, you do Agrabah and Monstro, which is where stuff plot-related actually happens. There you have Alice kind of got kidnapped in Wonderland, but it's like, no, you didn't really have a semblance of what was going on in the story yet. Then Jasmine gets kidnapped. You know it was Riku, and you know who he delivered her to. And then Monstro, because this is the point where like we've seen that Riku's okay because he shows up on Traverse Town, but now he's starting to do some sketch stuff because he kidnaps Jasmine, and he grabs Pinocchio because we know that like Kyrie's somewhere, and he's like, his heart is gonna fix this. I'm gonna take it.
I'm just gonna rip the heart out of this doll.
Mm-hmm.
And then like, no, he's a real boy somewhere.
Yeah, and then Atlantica. I have my next bullet point is Atlantica, Halloween Town, and faffing about because nothing happens.
No, but it's cool though.
No, yeah, it's
You're
again
a
like
dolphin.
those are two of the best examples
You're
of
a spooky vampire.
Those are the best examples I think of why this game has quote charm because you have the whole underwater thing, and then you have I'll talk about this probably in Kingdom Hearts 2 as well because we go back to Halloween Town in Kingdom Hearts 2. The textures in Halloween Town are all like very, you can see like little like gouges and things. It looks very carved out. It looks very there's not a lot of solid color. Like there's not a lot of like okay, this is just a polygon that has a single coat of paint over it. Everything looks really textured. Like you could run your hand across it and you would feel bumps and scratches and stuff on it. And that's not presented everywhere else. It's only presented there because that's how the movie looked. And then similarly, you have Atlantica, and you're actually, it's not some kind of side-scroller thing or whatever else. Like, I don't know if there are any other, Little Mermaid games, but I would assume they play like Echo the Dolphin. You have like this, 3D move around. You're like, I'm swimming towards Trident's Palace.
And it feels good.
Yeah.
Like a lot of times with games, especially like the older ones, well, I guess nowadays it's true too, but when you have a gimmick that's just introduced for one part, it's usually not so good. Mm-hmm. But it felt good. Of course, that boss fight was rough. But, but the actual like dolphin Sora movement felt good. It was
pretty simple. You go up and down, and usually the enemies were all on the same level. Like they did not go up and down all the time. Like they knew
that could have made it real frustrating.
And also, it was nice that if you lock onto something, and your Sora automatically goes up or down towards it. It's like that made combat a lot easier too.
Yeah, and then they put a lot of work into this one little segment to make sure it didn't feel bad.
Charm.
Yeah.
And then as we talked about in it, Atlantica kind of does some stuff like it doesn't affect the overall plot, but it suggests like okay, maybe not all Keyblade wielders are good guys because Trident's super upset about this. We kind of have some parallels with Ariel wanting to leave as compared to what Sora and his crew did. But then it doesn't really go anywhere or really develop that much. And then Halloween Town, nothing happens at all of importance, but whatever. Moving on. And then you have, my next bullet point is Neverland, Peter Pan, and the Lost Plot. Because that's the one where, things finally kick off. I think that's, you'll notice this as we go forward in Kingdom Hearts. In this game, especially the first 3 Disney worlds, their own self-contained stories. Like, there was some overall plot hinting, but like, you just played, there's a story there, Agrabah was like that, Halloween Town was definitely like that, and Atlantica was like that, there was, the story of Atlantica was somewhat impacted by Sora's character, like, they were from another world and Keyblade and stuff, but for the most part, it was just, you went into that world and there was some kind of story that took place there.
Right.
And they might have related to the overall themes of the game, somehow, and they all kind of progressed, because the plot of the game was going around and saving these places, and you were procedurally beating Maleficent's villains. So they did play into the game, like they all related to the game's story in some way at least, but
nothing like specific plot heavy is happening. Like,
and
you're not fixing something, you're not changing something or experiencing it.
And if you weren't playing the game for the original story, if you were just in for the Disney stuff, you got that.
Yeah.
You go to each one and you play through the story of the Disney movie, like it wasn't necessarily directly from the Disney movie. Like they were all edited. I would say, like for instance, none of the Christmas stuff was in Halloween Town.
Yeah.
Like there was a lot of because one of my criticisms of number 2 is that number 2 is basically they just retell the movies and that's it. Like in this one, they kind of like okay, you have to go.
It has its own story.
Yeah, you go find evidence to save Alice from the trial thing. You kind of team up with Ariel and swim around and do stuff. It's not the exact story of the film. In the later ones, the story either A, follows the exact plot of the movie, which is most of the Kingdom Hearts 2 worlds, or B, basically only exists to facilitate the progression of the overall plot, like Birth by Sleep and Dream Drop Distance. Dream Drop Distance, not so much, I guess. People will say that I'm exaggerating, and I kind of am, but I exaggerate to show the shift in focus. But anyway. So Neverland kind of brings the story back around, and that world is just plot. Like it's set on Captain Hook's ship, and Peter Pan and Wendy are there, but it's about the story. It's about that's where you fight the Shadow. Sora, Riku's there the whole time. Kyrie's there. that's the first time Sora catches up with Kairi. You know, like that's plot. That's where the plot really picks up. And then you go to Hollow Bastion, and you know all the plot happens.
That's
in the
where
world.
a lot of the plot happens.
That's where. I mean, it's not the climax of the story, but that's where Sora's character arc, you know, kind of ends. I would say. After that, he's a static character for the most part. Like I mean, like, you know, obviously he still has to make the decision of not going back with Kairi and stuff. But I think that at that moment where he, you know, sacrificed himself to save Kairi, like, you know, his character development was done.
Yeah,
there was still game after that, but no, there's nothing wrong with that. But that was, you know, that was where, from an emotional and storytelling standpoint, I think it, like, even though it wasn't the climax of the action of the plot, that was where the storytelling ended, to some extent, anyway. Anyway, my bullet point here is the final keyhole of completely drops tension. Because once you get to the, you know, the keyhole opens up and all the darkness is spewing out because Maleficent was like trying to release the Heartless in full force or whatever. I still don't really understand what the final keyhole is sufficiently. But I guess it's like it makes the Heartless stronger or something.
Why not?
And she wanted to use them to kill more worlds or to rule all worlds because she has stronger Heartless or something.
Why not?
Yeah, she Nanomachine's son. They were the Genome Soldiers. That was what it was.
Okay,
yeah, exactly.
The missing link.
So at that point, you know, obviously, if you're playing the game, you know, just for the story, you might fly back to Hollow Bastion immediately, seal the thing, and then go to the, you know, end of the world and beat the game. We didn't do that. We went around and fought all the secret bosses, and I spent an hour of music, you know, getting all the bonuses and stuff, and we played through a 3-hour-long tournament on Hercules World. People criticized me a lot, said, Jacob, you're super underleveled for these boss fights.
Yeah.
Because if I was leveled enough, then the end, like, you know, the end of the world would be so boring because I'd be killing everything in one hit, and Ansem would be a complete non-threat. Like, I never really intended to beat any of those guys. Like, I thought maybe I'd beat Kurt Zeissa and Phantom, but I'd forgotten that Phantom was basically like my description for that video was something like I think they should redesign this boss, and it should just be a trash can, and you put in 20 ethers or 10 elixirs, and you win.
Oh god, that thing's rough. Like, the concept of that's rough if you're not doing magic playthrough.
Apparently the way to avoid Unknown's zappy thingy is whenever he teleports, just start curing, and because he might do the zappy thingy when he comes out.
Good lord.
Or just be good at the release thing.
You can't be good at that.
It was ridiculous. I don't know. Anyway, I mean, people are gonna be like, Jacob, you're so bad at the game. I know, I don't speedrun this professionally. I play other stuff. I can live with not being good at the secret bosses in Kingdom Hearts.
Is one of the hardest fights that I've seen in a while. Like, just
awesome though, right?
Yeah, no, it's sick. It's super cool to watch, but it's like the actual mechanics behind it are rough because he's got so much health, and that one zappy move is a killer.
I tell you what, though, it was a lot more fun than the Sephiroth fight. And I say that having done much better on the Sephiroth fight in the past. I don't remember if I've ever beaten him or not, but I have like gotten way farther than we did during our playthrough, obviously. But like I can just attest to that Unknown fight. I hadn't played it before. That was so much more fun than the Sephiroth fight. That was more fun than a lot of fights in the future games, honestly. That was some of the most fun that I've had with a boss fight in this game so far.
There's so much happening on the screen all at once.
That was some of the most fun I've had with the boss fight in this series, I think. But anyway, yeah, it's just I like from a Let's Play standpoint that I can go and do all of those before the end of the game, because obviously, like, the ending of the game is the paths between all the worlds are blocked and Sora, Donald, and Goofy are stranded. To then do further parts afterwards of beating the bosses would be like...
Wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I know you can say, Jacob, we know you didn't, you know, like, it's just, you know, it's very meta, I guess you would say. We know that they obviously didn't do that after the ending of the game, but I just wanted the ending to be the ending. I wanted them to run off after Pluto and end it there. That was the end. And then we wound up doing the secret movies and talking for like another 10 minutes, but whatever.
Yeah,
it's close. It's close enough to what I wanted. So yeah, I don't like so much that I just feel like the tension just drops at that point in the game. But anyway, so then you go to the end of the world and the end of the game. You beat Ansem.
You beat the giant meat ship of Ansem.
The meat ship. It's good. The SS meat ship. That's a good name for that. I think that thing is named the World of Chaos. I think that's the official name. I don't know that for sure. I'd have to check the wiki, which I don't feel like doing right now because Firefox is closed. And I want to turn it back on. But which brings us around to one of the larger themes of this game. And I will say this: as much as I don't like some of the later Kingdom Hearts games, this is still present. I would argue it's even like one of the better things about Dream Drop Distance, a game which I don't like, is that this theme is still kind of there in some ways. And one of the conflicts presented here is knowledge versus wisdom, I think, because you have this character of Ansem, again, who is established as a reliable narrator. He knows what's going on with the Heartless. All the information he gives us is accurate.
Right.
But at the end, he's wrong. And the person who's right is the one he says, one who knows nothing can understand nothing. The point is that, Sora is not as smart as Ansem. Ansem is a scientist, and he was researching the Heartless
He is
and
an
stuff.
intellect.
And yet he still managed to, say at the very end, even though I don't like that line, Kingdom Hearts is light. I really don't like that line, because it annoys me. But I think it's not critical of, being intelligent or trying to learn something, because, it's not saying that science is stupid or that learning your knowledge is stupid, but it's saying that you need to have more than that. You need to have some kind of human experience and empathy, because Ansem was a scientist, and he was an intelligent guy, but he was kidnapping people and experimenting on them. He'd lost his humanity, and I think that despite his desire to understand the science behind hearts, he didn't understand people, because he didn't have any relationships.
Right.
Sora goes around and makes friends with everybody. He's friends with people, Riku and Kairi, and all the other Disney characters that he meets and stuff. So even though he's not a scientist and he hasn't spent years researching hearts, he knows at some level that all people are good deep down inside, or at least that's what he believes. Whatever the whole light and darkness thing inside Kingdom Hearts is, the point is that, knowledge isn't the only thing that matters. There's a certain amount of experience.
Yeah.
And having to go and really live life and you have to know other people to really understand. No amount of reading books about psychology is going to suffice for going out and just meeting and trying to understand people. I know there's not much. I don't know how much you have to say in response to that, but
you've said about all that needs to be said, really.
Mm-hmm. That's good. I like that a lot. The game is if we had to pinpoint two things that are the emotional arc of the story, it's the Sora and Riku dichotomy of this is friendship, of how their motivation is the exact same thing. They're both motivated by friendship, their love for Kairi. If you want to say that, some people think Riku is romantically interested in Kairi, some people think he isn't. I think he at least had a crush on her in this game. Even if he isn't.
That's the impression I get.
Mm-hmm. That he cared, that he put so much energy into trying to rescue her. I mean, that also could have been, maybe because Sora kind of rejected him, or at least he perceived Sora to reject him. But the point is that both of them are motivated by the exact same thing. But whereas Sora tries to, he becomes friends with a bunch of people, and, tries to, I guess you would say, he cares about Kairi so much that he kills himself for her. Riku cares about himself so much that he tries to kill other people for her.
Yeah.
They're both motivated by friendship, but friendship is not, I would say that Riku, the villain, arguably the villain, is motivated by friendship. I don't know if you may not agree with me on that. You may want to argue me on that, but I feel like, and we discussed, before, that I said, Sora's friendship with Riku, if he'd been too dedicated to that and had refused to fight him, could have been an issue. I feel like, it's not saying that friendship, connection to other people is some kind of inherently,
right,
good thing, because Riku is very emotionally attached to Sora and Kairi, and that creates problems, whereas Sora opens himself up to everyone, I think. I know I'm getting really involved on this, guys, and I apologize, but that's just how I waste my time filming Let's Plays of this and making analysis videos. My mind gets stuck on it a lot, and I think about things. And I don't know how much of this is intentional or not, but I feel like at the very least, the Sora Riku thing has got to be intentional. Yeah. You have these two people who are after the same girl for approximately the same reason, but they go about it in such vastly different ways. I don't think that that's unintentional. I don't think that's me reading too much into it.
I think you're right about that. It felt intentional.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but anyway. So those are the two things that I think are the larger, kind of themes, if you wanted to get into what the game is about. And I do think that it's, you have to be able to care about characters, to be able to follow along with something. Again, anything can be about something. Anybody can write a plot where things happen, but you have to create something that people can care about, at least at some level, for it to really connect with people, I think. If we want to go with Star Wars example, lots of stuff happens in Phantom Menace, but I don't care about any of it, because I don't care about any of the characters. Not very much stuff happens in Star Wars Episode 4, but it very quickly establishes who Luke is, what he wants, that his dad was a Jedi and he wants to learn from Obi-Wan, and that Darth Vader killed his dad. It's there's very clear motivation in what he wants, and at the end of the movie,
invested in the characters.
And at the end of the movie, it's not just they beat the Trade Federation or something. Luke survives the man who killed his dad, because Darth Vader comes after him, and he lives through that. And then he beats the Empire. There's a very, and he does it using his Zen powers. He does it by putting away his computer and using his Zen. That movie wasn't made in the 70s at all. But that's. Yeah, I wonder why people like that movie. He uses his, Zen peace powers to blow up the man. But
Zen
anyway,
peace powers to
blow up the man. That's what Star Wars is about. But that's, again, people are gonna be like, you're reading too much into it. Star Wars is a super simple story, but it is about something. It's about a character, and it gives you a reason to care about what's happening. Anyway, now we're on to stuff that I think is gonna be a little bit easier to just talk about, which is gameplay.
Yeah.
What works? Let's start off positive.